but you build it back up by feeling that feeling. And you got to do it every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, just so you can get familiar with that feeling. Because what you're doing is telling the universe, God, whatever, Buddha, Allah, whoever you believe in, you're telling your higher power, you're telling yourself as well as your higher power what you are looking for.
Have you ever felt completely stressed out because you're working so hard to reach your goals, you're working so hard to scale your business or increase your revenue or get the car, get the house, do all these things because you have these great goals that you want to achieve. But even when you achieve them, you still feel stressed out. And every time you get there, you're like, okay, what's next? What's next? I know that I've definitely been there, and I would guess that you've been there too. And it's why I really wanted to have my guest today on the show, because we really redefine what wealth and success actually is and how to turn money into meaning. Today's guest is Kiné Corder, and she is the founder of Presidential Lifestyle. She's a best-selling author and a psychotherapist specializing in financial therapy. If you've never heard of financial therapy, we're talking all about it today, and it's pretty amazing, and I think you're going to want to dive right into what Kiné has to offer. She's an expert on stress management and midlife crisis. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize this. It was like this stuff that I'd never even heard of before when it comes to midlife crisis and typically what happens to a man and a woman. So listen out for that, because it kind of blew my mind and made me see things in a different light. Kiné's been featured on Oprah, Good Morning America, E! Channel, Entertainment Tonight, various print media entities like Elle, Marie Claire, TV Guide, People Magazine, the list goes on. The interesting thing, and she'll tell her story, but she's spent over 15 years in financial services before making the shift to financial therapy. And you probably know this, but money is still the number one reason that couples will get divorced. And so Kiné has really dedicated her whole life to helping people redefine the idea of money and wealth. And that's what she does with her company, Presidential Lifestyle. And she's really passionate about getting people to find more meaning in their lives. And we talk about just how you can do that. And it's really what I wanted to focus on, especially right now, because people are having, different shifts in their life, and they are feeling some sort of, oh my gosh, what is my purpose? What is the purpose of my business? What is the purpose of my life? What I want to feel good. I want to have meaning. And we talk about all of those things and how she helps people to get there. And what I love about Kiné is that we're talking about some serious topics. And I think people might feel a little bit like, oh, I don't want to have to do all of this work and have to feel all of these emotions, and that's so icky. But she has such a very uplifting way, and you'll hear her process in the interview. She, first of all, just has this uplifting manner about herself. She's this incredible, bright energy and full of laughs, even when talking about serious things. She has her own stories that she shares with us, which I'm so grateful to. And we really go backstage on money and the meaning of money and wealth, and of course our life. And we talk about, this American dream that people are fighting so hard to have, but what really is that? So I'm really excited for you to hear this. And I really know that you're going to walk away with so many great takeaways.
Kiné, welcome to the show. I'm so grateful that you're here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
This is so great because I love when I get to do interviews where I'm going to learn a ton. My audience is going to learn with me. And when it's just so timely. I mean, the work that you do is always timely, but there's this extra extra timeliness right now. And so I'm just so happy that you're here. So before we get into all of this good stuff, can you give a little bit of a background on who you are, the work that you do, and your genius?
Okay, so I usually say one certain thing, but something is telling me that your audience wants to hear something different. So what I am is one of these like multi-talented, I can do anything you put in front of me. And so it's been the best thing in my life, but it's also been the worst thing in my life. It's like
I can see that.
yeah. So I've been through quite a few businesses. I was raised to be an entrepreneur. My parents, my story is my parents both had jobs and they both got laid off in the same year. And it just changed our family. You know, we went from 2 6-figure incomes to unemployment and using 401k to start their business. And they started their business and then they raised us to have our business. So me, my brother, and all of us, all of the children are entrepreneurs. So I started out in the beauty industry. My sister was a hairstylist and I knew I didn't want to be a hairstylist. And I was like, that's not my thing. Because I was such more of like a tomboy. I had like all this testosterone. So I decided to become a barber. So I became a barber. Oh, wow. I did that for a while, loved it, but I got bored. And then someone introduced finance to me and I was like, Well, what I should say is my actual degree is in television production. So I did do that for a couple of years, but it was so much fluctuation. And you know, your favorite show gets canceled. You love a show and then next thing you know, it's canceled. Well, just think about all the people who are working on that set. It's canceled for them as well.
Yeah.
So I got tired of that fluctuation. And so I went in, because all my friends were hairstylists and barbers. So I went and got my barber's license. I did that for quite a few years. Loved it, was very good at it, like really good at it, but I was bored. It was just not what I was meant to do. And so I just started searching for purpose and meaning. And I'm like, okay, how can you be good at something, but just like not like it? That was just weird. And everybody around me knew what they wanted to be when they grew up, so to speak. You know how we ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? Yeah. Like all the people knew. And I was like, rich. And they're like,
yeah,
you got to know more than that, Kiné. And I'm like, okay, I want to be rich by helping people. They're like, oh, that narrows it down.
Oh my gosh, I so hear this.
So I kind of jumped, you know, careers and jumped businesses. And that's the great thing about being an entrepreneur. You don't have to wait for a promotion. You can promote yourself. And so as my business pivoted, I ended up in finance just because a friend of mine gave me a great idea, and that's all I need is a good idea, and I'm off. And so we started a company together. We did I basically sold everything that had a dollar sign associated with it at one point.
Wow.
So everything that had to do with finance, I've done it. And then I just felt like I needed to make a bigger difference. Like people would come into my office and they needed help with more than just stock picks and a financial plan. They had trauma and anxiety, and couples would come and argue in my office. And I was like, oh, I am part of the problem. I am not offering a solution here. Yeah. And that became like daunting and tiring. And I didn't like the work that I was doing anymore. So I started looking at what was next. And I found behavioral finance and financial therapy. And it really became clear to me that there was like this American dream that we were all rushing to, that we were like, once we got there, we were like, oh, this is it?
Yeah.
I thought it looked so much bigger on TV.
Totally.
Yeah. So that was when I made the shift to therapy, and I said, you know, let me get into the mindsets of these entrepreneurs, or sometimes it's, you know, a CEO that works for a company. Sometimes it's just a really hardworking American, or most of the people I work with are American. And so it's like this really hardworking American who it just wants the American dream. You know, they want the house, they want the kids, they want the marriage, they want the stuff, you know, but they also want the meaning and the happiness, and they just aren't getting it. And they have built these like stellar resumes. And those are the people that I work with. These people with stellar resumes, but there's still something missing in their lives. And so as a therapist or counselor, more importantly, as a hypnotherapist, I go down into the subconscious brain and I help people figure out what is blocking them for their full potential. And what's scary to a high achiever is that everybody around them thinks they have reached their highest potential, but they know there's more inside of them and they just can't figure out how to tap into it. So the work that I do is to open up, is what I call it, because it's all there already inside of you. You just got to open it up so you can let it out. And that's my job.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So can we talk about the symptoms of this, you know, if we're talking about this particular CEO, or the common traits of the CEO, who mostly is like, well, happiness, you know, I have this many dollar signs in my bank account, or I have, you know, this color house, or whatever it is. Like, what are those symptoms, so that, because what I want is for people, because I think some people feel that there's something missing, but they're not even aware of why there's that feeling. And so I kind of want to go through that journey of like where you might be. Do you relate to this? And then what does it look like on the other side? Like how, because it's fascinating that there is like a therapy related to finance. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a fascinating thing, because most people don't put those two together. It's like, no, there's mental health and then there's the money I make.
Yeah.
Separate things.
Yeah. And it's so strange because money is the number one cause of stress. Like all of the studies have shown that money is the number one cause of stress, whether you have it or not. You can have $1 million, you're still trying to get $2. You know, you can have $20 million, you're still trying to get 100. All the friends around you, you bought the house in the neighborhood you want to live in, but those people make hundreds of millions. And then you're like, oh shoot, I'm never going to measure up. So no matter how much money you get, you're always trying to chase the next dollar. And so it begins to stress you out. Now, let me go back though, Summer. So these are symptoms and almost like stages, kind of like how cancer comes in the stage, and then you get the stage 1, and nobody really catches it in stage 1, rarely. It's like this, 3 and 4 when they started to finally catch it, because the symptoms get just that bad. And that's what it's like. So from 0 to 7 years old, really, we're putting our money beliefs in place and how we think we're going to relate to money. We don't know that we are because we're so young, but 0 to 7 is when we really put all things in place. All of our belief system gets put in place between 0 and 7. Now, I mean, in the womb to about 7 years old. And some people even say 5. So if you think about the decisions we make, a lot of times are like 7-year-olds, sometimes 5-year-olds. Yeah. And so those symptoms really started then. And then from 7 to 14, you started to like prove, you had a hypothesis, and then you started to prove that. And you looked for evidence for it and you found it. So say at 7 years old, you're like, I'm going to be a fireman because firemen have flexibility and they save lives and they get to go on trips because I saw a fireman and he told me he went on a vacation and that's what I want to be, right? And then you start looking for evidence of how cool it is to be a fireman. Oh, and look, and that fireman has a pretty wife. I know I'm going to be a fireman now. And he bought a house. Yes, fireman, that's what I'm going to be. So you start proving. And then 14 to 21, you are scanning the world to solidify that, just to solidify it. Now, you might not become a fireman, but whatever you had in mind as to what it looked like to be a fireman, now you're trying to recreate that. You're putting that into your life. Now, a lot of this is programming because society will tell you, go to school, get a good job, get married, have a baby, buy a house, all the things in this order. Do it. If you don't, then what's wrong with you? Like, what? You're not going to have any kids? Oh, you're such a selfish person. Right. And so all these things coming at you and you're like, well, I just better stick with the American dream, because if I don't, then everybody's going to look at me like there's something wrong with me. And the reason is because of this one statement that parents don't know that they're doing, but it is the most harmful statement ever. And that is, because I said so.
Yeah.
And that is when, if from 0 to 7, your parents are saying, because I said that, do that because I said so, do that because I said so, then you get it marked in your head that you need to listen to an outside voice. And from 0 to 7, that is your parents, or your caretaker, I should say.
Yeah.
It might be someone else, but it's your caretaker. And then from 7 to 14, mommy's voice is not that important anymore. It's like, oh, the kids on the playground. And then when you go to high school, it's like, oh, I got to show up for these kids in, senior square or whatever. That's what it was called at my high school, senior square. Everybody, you went past senior square, you had to be on point. Whatever, you make sure your clothes look good, you're walking tall. Senior square, if you go through senior square, you're going to get clowned if you're not on point. So so you're trying to get all dressed for senior square, right? Because you want those other people to like you because because I said so. So I want to wrap this up so that they see the symptoms. So the symptoms just come really early. And the first thing is that you put this idea in place, and it's usually passed down to you. And then once you put that idea in place, you find it hard to let go of it, but it is not fulfilling you. Yet you still keep doing it because you can't figure out what else to do because it has to be right. All these other people can't be wrong, and I must be the crazy one. So you start to question yourself rather than questioning the status quo or society's programming. And then your spirit or your soul or whatever you believe in is that internal thing inside of you, is for me is intuition or gut. It starts to talk to you and it's like, we got to get out of here. Like, I can't do this anymore. And you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. This brings us money. And you're like, yeah, that money, we can get it from somewhere else. No, we couldn't, because everybody knows you can't be a writer and make money. Everybody knows you can't be a painter and make money. Like, come on now, I'm not doing that. And your gut is like, all right, you don't have to do it, but I'm doing it. Nervous breakdown.
Yep.
And for men, it looks like a midlife crisis a lot of times. And for women, it looks like a nervous breakdown. For women, it can come earlier, like around, for women that we get like 2 of them, around 30 years old, we get a crash and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I didn't get married. I didn't have kids. I didn't follow all the, rules or whatever. I'm just floating out here. I'm terrible. I'm a horrible person. And then if we resolve that, then right around 40, just before 40, about 38 years old, we get a second little blast. And it could last up to 2 years. It could be as short as 6 months, but we start to question ourselves. And we're like, what am I doing? How am I doing it? Why am I doing it? And what is this? And who am I? And all of these questions come up. And then at 40, this beautiful, this layer of dew just falls over you and you just don't care anymore. I don't know if I can curse, but that's the real statement I want to say.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. But for men, it comes a little later, as normal. Men develop slower than women. And so it comes a little later, usually somewhere around 35 now. It used to be later in life for men, but nowadays the millennials it's hitting them a little earlier. So 35 to about 50, a man is going to go through that midlife crisis where he's just going to start questioning things. And it usually looks like, especially in wealthy white males, it looks like I'm buying a sports car. I am dating, a 20-year-old. It's like I'm doing all the things that I really wanted to do back when I was a kid. Now I'm going to start doing them. I'm going to buy that car that I always had my eye on. I'm going to date that woman that I always had my eye on. Forget that she's 30 years younger than I am. Like, that's not the point here. I just need to feel better. And so it looks like making these what looks like bad decisions. They're not to you and your subconscious brain. So the subconscious brain is fulfillment. But to the world, it looks like really bad decisions. Like, really, you've been married 30 years and you're going to leave your wife.
Right. It's like, you're irrational. You're crazy. What's happening?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And really what he's looking for is just meaning. What she's looking for is just meaning.
Yeah.
So that was like a really long answer, but I wanted them to get a sense of the progression. Because you don't wake up one morning and just question all your shit.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think so many people, and so many people so many people relate to this, whether they're admitting to it out loud or inside. It's like, yes, yes. So then
Mhm.
what are, in the work that you do, like how do we shift this? Because like you said, the solution is to find that meaning, but
Mhm.
how?
So it's there, it's inside of you. So there are two ways. So one way is the long way. You can do it on your own. You absolutely can do it on your own, but it does take longer to do it on your own.
Yeah.
The other way is to find a guide, like a Yoda. Like Yoda
Yeah.
told Luke Skywalker how to find the Force. The Force was inside of him. He would have found it on his own eventually, but Yoda just made that journey a little faster and a little more insightful. So you can find a guide, someone like me. I use hypnotherapy to get down to the subconscious brain. And what we do is we kind of go back to 0 and 7. 0 to 7 years old is where all the stuff happened, good or bad. It's like
Yeah.
your programming happened then. So let's go back there. Let's capture that. What was that feeling? What was the feeling that you want to get to? Because what's happening is we're chasing that feeling. It's almost like drugs. You know how they say, like, you use one drug and then you're trying to get that feeling. And so then you kind of like, okay, that drug won't do it. And then you go on to the next drug. Well, that's what we
Yes.
do in life. We just like, okay, that girl won't do it. I'm going on to the next girl. Oh, that guy won't do it. I'm going on to the next guy. That car wouldn't do it. I'm going on to the next car. And we're just like chasing this feeling. Now, 0 to 7 was when that feeling got put in place. So we need to go back there to feel what it really feels like. And once we can capture it, and it feels a lot like gratitude. Like, have you ever just been so thankful for something? Like, I'm
That's
going
the
to tell you
best
this.
feeling ever.
Yes. I'm going to see if I can shorten this story really quickly. I moved to Nevada last year, and on my way, I drove from Georgia to Nevada, and there was a 5-car accident that I was technically involved in. Of the 5 cars, everybody's car was like trashed except mine. I was the car that was barreling down the road happened to just go around me. And then instead, like, I stopped just in time. I swerved over not to hit the person in front of me. Like, all these things happened and I watched it in slow motion, like a movie happen all around me. But
Yeah.
because I had played in my mind what I was going to do, because I promised my mother, because she did not want me to drive. So I promised my mother I was going to be safe. And so I had already practiced in my mind, like, okay, so if something happens, I'm going to swerve over there. I saw like those narrow side of the road that I could, like, okay, as long as you get here, you'll be safe. Like, I played it out in my mind. And so we talk about mindset and visualization. I had already played it out in my mind. So when it went down, and I didn't know it was going to go down, but I promised my mom, no matter freaking what, I'm going to be safe when I'm getting to Nevada. And so I was keeping my promise. So when it went down, I played it out just exactly the way I played it out in my head. And the only thing I could do was like breathe. At that moment, I was like, like,
Yeah.
like it was nobody there to hug. It was just me in the car, but I was like, oh my God, I'm safe. Like,
Yeah.
I was looking at my arms and my hands and my legs, and I was like, oh my God, I made it. And it was just like this best feeling, like the most gratitude ever. And it just so happened that there was a state police on the road at the time, and he was checking everybody to see, and he came over to me. He was like, you are so blessed. And I was like, I know, right?
Yeah. Wow. It's like an epiphany that happens. And I think, a lot of us have had those moments, and all of a sudden you see things so differently in
Yes.
every day. Like the
Yeah.
trees are greener. You know what I mean? You just have this massive appreciation, which is
Yeah.
literally the best feeling ever.
Yes. And so if you can tap into that feeling, that's really what you're trying to find. And you got to tap into the feeling, right? So that you're familiar with it. And it started when you were younger. You had it. We all have it. It just gets chipped away at, for women, it gets chipped away at. And for men, it gets piled on. Like a bunch of stuff just gets piled on. Responsibility, all of that stuff, that manhood stuff gets piled on. And for women, it just gets chipped away because people come and they take and take and take and take. And we're so generous and nurturing, and we give, and then we have nothing left. And so It gets chipped away at. And so you can't even find it anymore. And it's just like this little bitty crumb left inside of you. And you got to build it back up. But you build it back up by feeling that feeling. And you got to do it every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, just so you can get familiar with that feeling. Because what you're doing is telling the universe, God, whatever, Buddha, Allah, whoever you believe in, you're telling your higher power, you're telling yourself as well as your higher power what you are looking for. You don't have to know what color hair this woman or man is going to have. You don't know what height. You don't need to know what size engine this car is going to have. All you have to do is get that feeling. Know that feeling. Get so familiar with it, because when you go test drive that car, you're going to know this ain't it. When you go interview for that job, this ain't it. When you go start that business, this ain't it. Because you know how it feels. Now, whether you do that thing or not, that job might get you to the feeling. So it may be the gateway drug.
Yeah.
Fine. You just have to know and keep the main thing, and then say, but this is the way to the feeling. And so I'm going to take this car to get to the next car. Because sometimes we want to jump over and we end up falling in the ditch because the gap was too big. We hadn't closed the gap yet.
Right. So as we're talking about this, and you're discovering, as people are going through the journey of finding that meaning that already is within them, how does that then redefine what wealth is? Like going back to your, I want to be rich.
Yeah.
How does that redefine what that actually means?
That's a great question. So here's what that meant for me, and then this may help people uncover it or discover it for themselves. So to me, rich or wealthy or prosperous or whatever word you use, right? Because we all use different words.
Yeah.
So for me, that meant I could do anything I wanted to do, right? I have enough money to do all the things that come to my mind. If I say, I want to go to New York this morning, I could do it. And so it meant freedom for me. That's what rich, so to speak, meant to me. And so look at the other part of that. I say helping people. I want to get rich by helping people. That looks like counseling. That looks like therapy. And so when you can put those two together, freedom. And for me, it's sort of like this responsibility. I have this responsibility. I heal. I know how to heal. And so I'm not going to just hold on to that. No, I'm spreading that all over the world. And the great thing is I can teach other people some of it. I can't teach my innate, inborn skills, but the program that I created, I can teach other people. And I teach doctors, or I should say wellness professionals. I teach wellness professionals how to spread this too, because I can't do it on my own. So I'm helping people, and then I'm helping helpers help people, because there were other people who said they wanted to be rich and by helping people. I wasn't the only one who said it. And so you kind of put that's what I said about the gap hasn't been filled yet. But I had to do all that other stuff, going back to how we started this conversation. I had to be a hairstylist, because while I was a barber, I just listened. And that was my first counseling job. While I was in finance, I was strategizing. And that's how I'm helping people bridge that gap and pull that meaning in their lives. All the things I did culminated into what I do right now.
At the Draw Shop, we are known for creating messages that convert, whether it's copy we're writing, video we're producing, or images we are illustrating. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably ready to move the needle in your business. So we created something free for you that you can learn in the amount of time it takes you to drink a half a cup of coffee. It's a 10-minute quick win for your landing pages. And what you will learn when you download this free guide will not only impact the effectiveness of your landing pages, but it's also going to impact the behavior of your visitors and shift the way you market to your audience altogether. So if you're ready to learn what most marketers ignore, how to quickly fix the top reasons people click away from your landing pages, then download your 10-minute quick read now by hitting the link in the show notes for this episode, or just heading over to thedrawshop.com/6 reasons. That's the number 6, thedrawshop.com/6 reasons, and you'll be on your way to increasing your site conversion rates and growing your business. Okay, back to the episode.
But the last thing I want to say too is let go of the judgment. if I was judging myself for being a barber for all those years, or being a financial advisor for all those years, or doing all the things, because don't get it twisted, there was a whole bunch of little stuff that happened in between those years of doing those things. And the entrepreneurs, you feel me. I know you hear me. Forget all about that judgment. Like, do what you have to do in order to get there. The debt, forget about it. I know society tells you don't have any debt. Screw that. American Express was my best friend. I was like, where's my American Express? This business needs to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do what you have to do. You just need to stay alive. The winners, the difference between the winners and the losers, the winners stayed alive.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are going to tell you all about the hard work and blah, blah, blah. They strategized and they were so smart and yeah, whatever. They stayed alive. They let everybody around them die and they stayed alive. That is how you win. Just don't fall. Just keep going.
Exactly. I love
get
that
back up
much.
even if you do. Right?
Exactly. I was going to say, you fall, but you get back up. You're not knocked out. You're just you're just down for a little bit. Exactly. I love the no judgment, because so many people, I mean, if you think about everything that you've talked about, it is that worrying about what other people think. Oh, these people have this. I should have that too. They're making this much money. I should be making that much money. Yeah. And then really, those people probably really don't care. Like, they don't care at all about you. It's more about how you're turning that into judgment for yourself, which is the toughest thing. What are some of the things that you, like, if you can share anonymously, of course, but the people that you've worked with that have discovered were the blocks to seeing that meaning, or the blocks to, having that fulfillment?
Yeah. Oh, girl, Summer. Oh, number one, there are two things that I see so very often. So let me tell you the first one, but it's a secondary. So anger, and resentment. Anger in men, resentment in women. But anger is a secondary emotion. So is resentment. It's a secondary emotion. You felt something else before you felt the anger, whether it was disappointment, embarrassment, sadness, whatever, despair, whatever you felt that first. And then that drove you to anger because it wasn't resolved. Same thing with resentment. So that's a secondary emotion. The second most common thing, which really drives the other two, is loneliness. That is hands down the number one thing. Now, nobody ever calls me and say, hey, I'm lonely. Can I talk to you? No, that's not the way it goes. They don't know that loneliness brought them to me, but that is the absolute number one thing that I treat is loneliness. And because of that, what people are really, it doesn't matter how many people are around you. You can have 9 kids. You can have 2 wives. You can still feel lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you didn't create the meaning. And the meaning is that thing that you said you wanted so long ago, but you let society take it away from you. Why? Because you can't be wealthy and be a writer. You can't be married and do this. All of those like rules and regulations and just stuff that nobody, you can't do it if you're a woman, all those things. It's like, yes, you can. But here's the thing that I want to point out to your audience that I see so much get in the way. Stop doing it for other people, right? I'm going to do it to show them. Really? That's why you're going to do it? That's your why? It's like, can we get a more meaningful why, please?
Right.
That is going to piss you off at the end when they don't care.
Yes, because they don't. Oh my gosh, that is so true.
You succeeded? Oh, I didn't even know. Because I was too busy over here worried about myself and what myself was doing and who myself was with and how much money myself had. I didn't know you had anything. I didn't know anything was going on with you. I tell story a lot. That's because when we go back and if we're doing something for somebody else, just gonna bring up anger and resentment. That's all. That's what you're gonna end up with that at the end. Not happiness, not none of that. All the words that mean happiness, bliss, and utopia, and greatness, and confidence, and none of that. None of that. You're not gonna end up with any of that. It's gonna be resentment. It's not gonna be love. So if you want to feel loved, The very, very best thing you can do for yourself and the rest of the world is find a meaningful why.
Yes. Is it a long, I mean, I can hear people asking this right now, like, well, how do I get over that anger and resentment? Like, how do I, is this a long process? What am I going to have to do? It's, it's there, and and
Yeah.
especially once they start to realize all of that's there, it's like, oh, all these emotions are coming up.
Right. And uh, this is what I will say, shameless plug, is
Yeah.
my program, Control the Controllable. That is what it's all about. It's designed to help you get through all of that anger and resentment. Now, you could do it without a program. You can do it on your own. But like I said earlier, it's going to take longer. You're going to need some patience. So you can either get a guide, or I call myself a guide, but I also call my program a guide. I don't call it a course because it is not a course. It really is a guide. It's step by step to show you, oh, here's the awareness. Oh, here's the acceptance. This is what I need to accept about myself in the world and, the people around me. And this is what I need to adjust, because by adjusting these things, I'm going to feel more fulfilled. Oh, and these are the things that I need to have gratitude for. And these are the things that I need to ask for forgiveness for, or just forgive somebody for. Oh, here's where I need to be present and just be present. Oh, and here's where I need to be curious and not have judgment and expectation. Just see how it unfolds. It's like all of these things play into you releasing all of the crap that got piled on top of you through society, that programming that society gave you, and you received it. So you have I put a lot of responsibility on society, but don't get it twisted. You also have some responsibility because you received it. And at some point you knew it wasn't right and your gut was telling you, and you chose to keep going. And you gave a bunch of excuses like, well, it's too late now. I'm already been in this career 10 years, or it's too late now. We already bought all this stuff. We got to keep this thing going, right? I'm on a roller coaster now. I can't get off.
Yes.
And yeah. So I want them to understand that, sure, you can do it by yourself, but you're going to need a lot of patience and you're going to have to surrender. And the process won't necessarily be easy. Now, hypnotherapy makes it a lot easier. And that's why I work with so many men, because you don't really need to go through a lot of emotional stuff. You might 15 minutes of emotions rather than 15 months of emotions like therapy can be.
Right.
So you can get to healing without insight. Like, you don't have to unpack all the reasons why. You don't have to remember all the trauma. All you know is the trauma happened. Trauma happened? Yeah. You ready to feel better? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Like, that's what hypnotherapy is for my patients, the way that I do it, because I do brain-based hypnotherapy. I'm going straight to the cause because it's in your brain. Your brain sends it to your body to let you know something is not right. That's why your knee is hurting. I'm trying to get your attention. That's why your back is hurting. I'm trying to get your attention. That's why you have a stomach ache every time you eat. I'm trying to get your attention. The brain can't talk to you any other way but to send you some pain. And so that's how it gets your attention. Sends you the pain, and then you end up at the doctor. The doctor says, oh, you need to talk to Kiné. And then you and I will work together successfully to release that anger, that resentment, the loneliness, all the things that have been holding you back, because that's what's in the way. It's not that you're not working hard enough. You are working hard enough, probably way too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's in the way is all of that emotional baggage that's keeping you from being calm and cool, and what I call calm optimal. Like, you can go to calm optimal brain state anytime you want, once you gain self-mastery. But you get so triggered by the thing that they said that your father used to say to you, right? So my daughter says to my grandson all the time, like, be quiet, be quiet. Like, he's a loud kid. He's a boy. And she said, be quiet, be quiet. And I said, you're going to have him be triggered. Like, his girlfriend is going to tell him one day, be quiet. And he's going to freak out on her. He's going to be like, don't tell me to be quiet. Because so I'm like, don't program that into his head, because he's going to get in his head that he is supposed to be silent. And then if somebody says, be quiet to him, it's going to trigger him, and he's going to freak out. And it could happen in the meeting. It can happen in his relationship. It can happen whatever. But he will sabotage. He will sabotage his work. So little things like that are stuck inside of us. And we say, I mean, they're little, but they're big. I tell this story all the time about how my mom, she wanted this specific drink and it only came from this one place. And we go to the one place and I'm holding the drinks and the dogs jump. We had 3 dogs at the time and they jump up on me and I drop the drink. And she had been talking about this drink all day long. And I just felt like such a failure in that moment. And I was like, oh my God, I totally disappointed my mom. And the dogs are licking the drink up off the ground. And I'm like, oh, she don't even remember this story.
She doesn't even remember it. It's traumatic for you, though.
Exactly. I can still see the dogs. I still see.
Oh.
But when I told her this story, I was like, this is when I became like a perfectionist. This is when I was like, I will never disappoint my mother. I would never disappoint anybody, not myself. I won't be perfect. Like, I won't mess up anymore. Right. And she's like, what? What? When was what? But she had Omar. It was called Omar juice. She had Omar juice all the time. So this one Saturday that she didn't get her Omar juice because I dropped it meant nothing to her, but it meant everything to me. So those little things like that stay lodged in our brains and they run a program. I call it like a jukebox. You know, the music is just playing and playing and playing. You just can't stop it. Well, eventually I'll give you the skills to choose the music you want to play in the background so that you do have self-mastery. You can control the controllables because we spend a lot of time trying to control things we don't control. The past, the future, you're way in the future. You don't have control of the future. It's not even happened yet. It's probably not even going to happen the way you thought it was going to happen. You know why? Because you weren't present. The very best thing you can do for the future is to be completely present. That's the gift you give yourself in the future, is to be present.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So before, because I know everybody's like, where do I find this program? How do I work with Kiné? And I'm going to I want to tell them all of that, but I want to give them a flavor of what's it like after you do this work? Like, what does that transformation look like?
Oh my goodness, Summer. It is so peaceful and calming. Like things that used to trigger you, they just don't anymore. And you don't know why. And you don't always notice it first. Other people notice it. They'll say like, normally you would have responded like this, but you didn't do that. Like wives or husbands or, mothers, kids even will start to notice that about you. And so then you notice it about you and you're like, oh my gosh, I would have. Doesn't even matter anymore. Like the amount of care you have, or I don't know if you've seen that YouTube video, that TED Talk where she's like, give 0 FUCKs. And so you start giving such less of them. You're just like, oh, I don't even care about that. And it's a process. And some things will fall off very quickly. Other things will linger. Like I have a program to work hard. And if things are not going my way, if I get into an argument with my boyfriend, if my best friend is busy and I can't talk to her, then I'm like, I know what to do. Work makes everything better. Not true. It's not
right.
True. But it's
not true.
Program in my head. That's how I feel safe. I feel safe by working. I don't know what it is. I do know what it is, but it's just my way of reacting. And I'm still working on that. I see myself doing it. I'm like, little girl. That's how I talk to myself. Little girl, don't go do that. Because that's the little girl that's doing that. It's not the adult me. It's the little girl in me who's like, oh, I better go work. And just so make sure I don't drop mommy's drink again.
Right.
Yeah, perfect. And so I go into work mode and I know this about myself. So what I do, instead of going into work mode, I'll say, okay, you got 2 hours. Get as much as you can get done. And then go play. Like go play over here at the pool. Go play with grandson. Go play. Like I give myself a thing to do. And so, and I call that person. So this is a little tip. So write this down. So let's say I have a friend, Leah. Leah is really good at scheduling with me. So not every friend is going to like doing this. So I know that if I tell myself you're only working 3 hours today, so I will schedule a call with Leah at the time that I'm supposed to stop, because I know Leah is going to call me at that time. Work must stop. So I'm that's like an accountability, but it's fun to talk to Leah. Like we go deep. Like I know our conversation is going to be robust. We're not going to be talking about the weather and nonsense. We're going to be like, so girl, let me tell you, oh, what did you think about this? And did you see this video? And blah, blah, blah. Oh, and did you see this program that so-and-so created? Isn't it just dope? Like we're going to go deep. And so that's how I force myself not to go into work mode, because if I didn't schedule that call with Leah, I will work and work and work. It'll be the wee hours of the night, like ordering the food to come to the house so I don't have to stop and cook. I will work and work and work. That is my response. And so once you know your response, that's the awareness. That was step 1 in the Control the Controllable program. Know your reactions. Just get really familiar with them. Don't judge them. Just notice them. And then first, you don't even have to do anything to change them. Just notice them. So go ahead and work your bones off, just do it. But just notice at the end how you feel. Do you feel that feeling that I talked about earlier? Right. No, you don't. You're like, oh, it feels crappy. I'm tired. I don't even know what I did today. Did I accomplish anything? All I did was work, work, work. I was supposed to talk to Leah and I didn't do that, And so you feel that feeling. It's not the feeling you're trying to feel. And you go, okay, all right, little girl, you see how that didn't work? I see. Okay, what would you like to do next time? Maybe next time I'll schedule a call with Leah. I'll only work 3 hours. Maybe we'll go to the pool, Okay, yeah, that sounds fun. How about doing that? Okay, that's what I'll do. And so don't get down on yourself. Just say, what will you do next time? And here's a question that I ask so often, and this is a powerful question. What would it take? And then finish that, right? What would it take for me not to work into the wee hours of the night? I know the answer. I need Fran. I need Leah. I need my grandson. I need something powerful, meaningful to get me out of work mode. And so just ask, what would it take? What would it take? And you can ask that question in so many different places. Yeah. It is such a powerful question. It helps you out so much. So keep that one real close to your heart, your head even, because that's where you really need it. When you get in your head, you got to go to what would it take, because it'll help you get down to the facts.
I love that. I love that. So many good tips. And we'll have these noted in our show notes. So in case you're driving and listening and weren't able to write them down, so great. I love stuff like that. It's like just really great go-tos.
Right.
Oh, it's so good. Okay. So now where you've talked about your program, I just want to know all the places where people can go to learn more about you, but also to get their hands on this program. Is it available? Can they do this?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yes. So the first place, let's talk about the program. So Control the Controllable, you can get on my website, presidentiallifestyle.com. Also, while you're there, if you're like, she was talking, she sounds like she knows what she's talking about, but I'm just not sure yet, and you need a little bit more time, I also have a free training. It's a money quiz and guide, and it'll help you understand how you use money to get love, give and receive love. And so it's called the Money Mentality Guide. And money mentality is like your money personality, basically. And so when you go to presidentiallifestyle.com, you'll see those 2 options. Now, I do have an option specifically for healers, and that's called the Presidential Experience. And the Presidential Experience is a private club for healers who just want to know a little bit more techniques, like these little questions that they can ask themselves or teach to their patients, because the resistance is real. And as a doctor or a healer, the biggest thing in your way is that block that your patient has. You want them to heal. They want to heal, but you don't have the tools or the skills to get them past that block. And so I give a lot of these tools. You don't have to be a hypnotherapist to do all the things that I teach. Some of the things that I teach, you can just do it. You can do yourself personally, but as a doctor, you can pass it on to your patients as well, or do it in office with your patients. So those are the 3 things you're going to see on the website. Outside of the website, if you're like, I just want to hang out with you for free, then you'll probably go to Instagram if you want to see the sillier side of me. I was really serious today and I was a little preachy. But if you
you weren't. You know what? You're talking about something serious, but you have such a light energy and fun energy about it that it's like, oh my gosh, I want to do this.
Yeah. And that's how I like to make it, because a lot of what I'm talking about is trauma. This is trauma for most of us. And those traumatic experiences, me dropping that Omar juice, was traumatic for me. I don't care how silly it sounds, it was traumatic. But there's so much deeper trauma, even from there, that could also trigger. And so that's what we're up against. We're up against our traumatic and our trauma, our traumatic experiences and our trauma. And so I just bring light because laughter is healing.
Yes.
And so if you can laugh about it, you can let it go because it is not serving you. And on Instagram, we'll have some fun. Like you'll see me hanging out at the pool. I talked about that a couple of times. You'll see my daughter and I, my boyfriend and I, my son, like I have a new son. I'm in a relationship. He has a son. I have twin daughters. And so now we have this blended family. So we're working it out and we're kind of chronicling the journey on Instagram. So you can get in our business a little bit, but not too much because I'm a little bit private, kind of, sort of. Yeah. I'm personal, but not intimate. Like you're not going to get too deep in our stuff, but we'll show you some stuff and the real stuff. Like I'll tell you how hard it is because it is very difficult, but it's also very rewarding. And so that's the stuff we talk about on Instagram, but on LinkedIn, it's like more professional. That's why I reach out to my doctors. I interact with them. And also my CEOs, because my actual end user, the person I sit in a room with, and when I say in the room, I'm in a virtual room, the person I sit in the room with is usually that high achiever who has worked so hard, just like me, thinking that it was going to turn out the way they wanted to, and it just didn't. And I help that person find meaning, turn that money into meaning, because usually they have money. They're not worried about money. That's not what this person that I work with is worried about. They're more so worried about, how am I going to make a difference, be significant, contribute to something? I feel like a loser. I just want to win.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Everybody else around them looks at them and thinks they're winners, but that's just not who they see in the mirror.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh. So true. Wow, you just dumped so much genius and awesomeness on us. It's so good. It's so good. I'm so excited. This is so great. I'm going to go do the quiz. I'm going to do all the things that you listed because I'm not like, yes, I'm in. Like my hand right now, you can't see it, but I'm like raising my hand like, yes. Oh my gosh, you're so incredible. You're such an inspiration. I just related to everything that you shared. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for being with us today. And again, we'll have links to everything that Kiné talked about in the show notes, so you won't miss any of it. It's all there. And thank you so much for being here.
But you know what? Let me say thank you to you, because there is nothing that brings me more pleasure than being able to come on a podcast. But if you didn't have a podcast, what would I be doing today right now? I was not finding meaning.
I love it. You just made my day.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Real quick before I go, have you left me a rating and a review yet? I want to make sure that I keep bringing you more of the topics you want to hear. So will you do me a favor and head on over to wherever you're listening on this podcast and let me know what you thought about this episode? Just scroll to the bottom, click on how many stars, 5 would be amazing, and then click write a review. Oh, and when you do, you'll be entered to win a $500 gift card to the Draw Shop that I will choose on the first Monday of every month.